on the previous ones. Can we see the agenda? Yeah. So basically, we will jump into the model, the proposal of the model with the classes and properties and cardinalities. We will give you one example to better understand how it could work, and then we will start discussing the pending issues that are in GitHub. We have like 7, 8 issues, so hopefully we will have time to cover all of them. I think so, because it's just we have 2 hours for all of this. And we will give you finally information about what are the next steps we are envisioning to discuss with you, if this is for you feasible, and also what is your interest to take part in next steps. So let's go quickly to the model. I think this is more or less what I explained. Now we will be discussing today the updated model based on the input that we collected from some of you. The creation of the specification has not yet started, and this is the next steps that we will be explaining to you later on at the end of the webinar, as well as the possibility to conduct, we can call it a pilot or maybe a proof of concept, to test in the field how fit for purpose this model could be to improve the search results at the single digital gateway portal, your Europe portal. So this is more or less the approach. I don't know, Florian, you want to add something else, or we jump quickly already into the visualization of the model?
No, I think it's that's it. And for the pilot, if some member states are interested in conducting the pilot, we will come back to that later, but we'll organize a brainstorming session on the 1st of June, if I'm not mistaken, to really discuss the content of this pilot. So
yes, absolutely. More information at the end of the webinar. In any case, we will give you more detailed information on this. So we presented now the model. It's Maxime, you are going to present this, and the practical example. Anytime there is any question, you can send us a message, raise your hand, or type a message in the chat box of the video conference. So please, Maxime, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Miguel. So before we jump into the model, I first want to tackle something else, which is the naming of the model. Currently, it's called the SDG Services model, but yeah, we are focusing more on the improving the search and the findability of information with the use of this model. And so we were thinking about emphasizing this more, and therefore we thought about a new name, which was the SDG Search Service model. So now it would be interesting to hear from the audience. Do you think this is a good idea? Are there other propositions? So in case people agree, they can always put a +1 in the chat. Or if there are other propositions, feel free to add. So the reasoning behind it is that we're focusing really on the search results with this exercise, and we also want to emphasize it within the naming.
Yeah, but of course it doesn't mean that we are not describing the services. That's why we kept it also in the name. Okido. And I see also some agreements in the chat.
Yeah.
So yeah, also say if you disagree with this proposition, plus you can also put a -1. Sometimes it's also easier for the discussion. But I propose not to move forward.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So on this page, you will see the current model that we have also shared with you on GitHub. We hope that you had the chance to look at it. At least we already saw some GitHub issues coming up and some responses. So thanks for those who have already put in the time. So instead of me going over the model now class by class, I propose to do this with the use of a use case that we have presented in the previous webinar also. And then you will see that we will fill in the model based on the different informations from the use case. So if you remember the use case of last webinar, it was about obtaining information on registering a vehicle abroad. So please take in mind that this was to search and find more information on registering a vehicle in Sweden. And then, so you will search on keywords such as registering vehicle in Sweden, perhaps the output such as a registration certificate. And once you have searched for it, you want to have the most optimal results. And within these results, we have identified that it would be good to know the public organization, the language in which a page is provided, the location where the service is provided to validate that it is correct. And these informations, when you search for results within, for example, your Europe portal, these will be in the service descriptions below all the search results. And then if you scan through it, you will need to click on the direct link that will provide you with the right information. So what we have done now is capture all this information, so either for searching and for the results within our model. And we will go over the different classes now to guide you through the use case. So I'll use my laser pen. So first of all, I wanted to search on obtaining information on registering a vehicle abroad. So this will be my search result here, the name of my public service. And another interesting search term could be the registration certificate, which is in this case the output, relate to the output class. And also, where do I want to register my car or my vehicle? It's within Sweden, and which is the location class. So you see within the search keywords, we have already covered three classes we have modeled. And then when going over to the findability, when going over to the results, we can see that, okay, what is it absolutely that we need when going through the different descriptions when searching for this information? It will be more information on the public service, a short description. It will be, okay, is it the correct public organization that is offering this public service? What are the direct contact details that I need? In this case, the Swedish Transport Agency. Do they have a phone, for example? Do they have an email address? And also regarding the output, it would be good to know perhaps a description of what will I retrieve when completing the service. And when I find the right description within the search results, I will be able to click on the web page link in the right language. So now we will go over different.
Maxim, there is a question from Kat Kommel on what is the difference between the contact point and the channel.
Yeah, so that is a good question. If I may, we will go over it in more detail in one of the GitHub issues later on. So if that is fine to tackle it later, and then we can discuss in detail.
Sorry, Maxim. In general, they are capturing in a different way similar concepts. While the contact point is really about the information in order to get access, the channel is more about describing those different accesses more generally. But yeah, that's also, as Maxim said, a reason why we are not modeling channel right now, because we don't see the exact need, but up to discussion a bit later.
And I see also a comment from Ana Rosa mentioning the metadata policy code and the optional DC policy. This is also something we will tackle in a GitHub issue, where we will check whether we need the policy code, or we can also capture it with live events.
But so let's discuss that a bit later. We have a placeholder for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe simply, are there questions about the way the model is right now? Some things that are unclear. So not yet things that are missing, but more like, is what we have clear to all of you? And if I don't see any reactions, then I understand that yes, it is clear. Okay, let's move forward.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But we will almost go over every class. It will come up in one of the GitHub issues, so then you have more than enough time to discuss it. So in between the last webinar and then this webinar where we present the updated model, we have made some changes based on your input. Here are the biggest changes, such as the cost that has not been included. The evidence, we have also not included it within the model, and then we have not included the LHS language, a link between public service and linguistic system directly, but only between web page and linguistic system. But I did see on the GitHub page that there was a comment on the evidence that it should be included. I think it was from Italy. So in case anyone wants to comment on this, that there is indeed a need to have evidence within the model as input. See here. Okay, but if there is no direct comment on evidence, I propose we move forward.
Evidence there is one on multilingualism from Ana Rosa. The fact that in general all public service attributes should be multilingual. Yes, the fact that from a data type perspective, each attribute should capture different languages, and that's of course the idea. What we mean here with public service and linguistic system with the relationship as language is really capturing the fact that you state that this public service is in a certain language or in several languages, but usually it's one. So that's really to mention it. What's the language used for certain public service? And last time we discussed it during the webinar, the rationale was that this is not needed for the search engine and to display results, which of course has to be differentiated from the language of the web page, which we discussed also last time that we were going to keep it. Because of course the public service can be delivered in one language or several languages, while the web pages can be described in more or less languages. Kido.
Okay, yeah. So in case there are no comments anymore on these decisions, I propose we deep dive into the GitHub issues and immediately go to the first GitHub issue. So each time in these issues, you will see on the top the issue described, and then on the left you will see the proposed solution that we propose with some additional information, and then on the right you will see the model that we have shown right before, and then each time the class we were talking about highlighted with some additional questions. So the first issue, this one was not documented on GitHub, but we have added it here. Is there a need to have next to geographic identifier of location also the geographic name of the location? And in case there is positive response, in case this is needed, we proposed to align with, for example, core location vocabulary, where they have defined in a specific manner how to use the name, such as based on the ISO code, or specific rules such as you see on the top left, for Greek, for example, for Greece, for example. So in case there is a need, please put +1 on the in the chat, or if you disagree and shouldn't, there is really no need to include it, you can enter a -1.
Of course, the use of geographic name will need to be aligned with what we have currently, geographic identifier. So let's give an example. We are discussing I think in the coming slide, about using nuts for the geographic identifier. The idea is to align the geographic name with what we decide for the identifier. So in that case, we would use the terms from nuts as well. I think the important question is, do we want to have the name in plain language for human readers, so not as a code or URI, within a specific property attribute as geographic name? Yeah, and so I see Valentini say, if we show it under the return link, I think it will help the user. Okay, so I understand it's a +1. And Ana Rosa raised hand before, so I propose, Ana Rosa, you have a question.
Yes, my question is, if we don't put explicitly the name in this, that means that the name will not appear? I mean, because there are two different ways to do it. If I put the code, if we agree on a code list, notes or law, then you can get the name. But exactly. A different thing is I can choose the name. I prefer a preferred label, not the name as notes or law, but as I want to show it in the results grid. So that's my question. Which name? So if you don't put the name properly, then no name is shown in the results grid, or it is shown some name, but you are considering to offer the competent authority to choose the preferred name instead of using the official name given by NUTS or by law.
Yeah, so I think the general idea is here to really be aligned with NUTS, with the geographic identifier code we will agree upon. Of course, we can, in the backend, always make the link, but I think it's better if we really want to use to have this property. So having the name indicated, it's better to also model it. And then, if besides that there is a need for a preferred label or an alternative label, that's also fine, and then that's also something we need to capture. But I would still differentiate both. Is it clear?
I'm asking because as less information we need to provide, easier is for the competent authorities to fulfill the metadata. So if you already have the names in all the linguistic rules, as you put in the example for a themes, then it's better to use these names and avoid the competent authorities to put a name by themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And so
But the name is always necessary to show it in the results.
Okay, and do others agree with what Ana Rosa just mentioned, the fact that the name is always needed? I see, Valentina, you said yes, and you raised the hand before, so I don't know if you want to add something. George said yes also. Okay, so I get that the geographic name is something we will add, and then based on what we discussed in the next issue, we will also need to see with you whether the name indicated in the code lists we will pick is something that you can use and agree upon, and based on that we'll see if we need a preferred label or not. But as Ana Rosa mentioned, the easiest from a manual intensive perspective, the easiest way is simply to retrieve it automatically from Nuts. Okay, with that I propose to move to the next.
Yeah. So the next issue, and now you can see the issue number on the top left of the screen, because these are documented. So going further on the previous issue, how should we define location and which code lists to use, and what about the different levels that we need to capture, such as the country, region, state, municipality level, etc. So as we propose to use nuts and lao as code lists, and you will see on the left of the screen the links that we've put from the publications office. So is this something that is fulfilling the needs of the member states? Are there doubts? Are there any further questions or alternatives?
Maybe, yeah, I see, Ana Rosa, you react, Georgia as well. Worth mentioning that indeed this is already agreed for the metadata for URLs as part of the implementing act of last June. So it's something normally all of you are already using. And then I think a big question is, okay, at what level do we need to go? Do we need to capture the low level, if I may say, which is at the level of a municipality? Let's see, Paola, you have a point.
Yeah, we are fine with the ISO for the member states, but we have experienced some issue for the local public authorities, regions and municipalities, because there is a significant delay in the updates. And and it happens, the structure of municipality changes, then it takes also a few years for updating the list. And then in this timing, we couldn't be able to activate procedures for local authorities. So maybe NATS for local authorities can be more convenient, or we should find a mechanism to align immediately or in real time the updates of local public authorities.
Yeah, and maybe, thanks, Paula. Maybe, Miguel, this is a point we should raise also to the publications office and Eurostat. The time to update and maintain the different vocabularies, the different code lists. Because indeed, if it's used in different cases, but as part of the SDG implementation, I think it's indeed needed that member states have a certain control over. And I saw also 2 comments in the chat from Kut and George about the fact that the level of granularity will of course depend on from one public service to another, and who is the competent authority. And George, you mentioned that you have even a lower level than low, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, we have parish. So in some cases, the specific services we have, because with the decentralization of the authorities, some municipalities have delegated already some of the competencies to the parish. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so low will be sufficient, or
I think at least municipality would be reasonable, but I'm not sure about the other countries. Realities may be different, right? So,
yeah, okay. And yeah, maybe an important point mentioned by Ana Rosa. Since Paula, you were coming back on ISO 3166. At the moment, Ana Rosa mentioned also on GitHub that NUTS 0, level 0, is used for the countries, and this is normally a mapping 1-to-1 to the ISO code. So normally with NUTS we are also compliant with ISO. But I don't know, Ana Rosa, if you want to add something on this.
No, the problem is that they are almost identical, but they are not. So that's one, for instance, one of our mistakes with the name of the metadata, because they say ISO 3166, but at the end, if you see the slight differences, Greece and United Kingdom, then you see that they are referring to NUTS 0. NUTS 0 has those codes for Greece and United Kingdom, and the rest are the ones used by ISO. So indeed, we are not using ISO 3166, because otherwise we will use GB and GR. So in fact, we are using NUTS 0. What I'm trying to say is that I don't know why they called ISO 3166, because we are not using that code list. Because with these 2 exceptions, then there is not ISO 3166. And whatever we choose here, I think it should be aligned with the SDG metadata. So,
yep.
I mean, I don't know why they call that field ISO 3166, because it is not.
Yeah, so maybe something to be checked with the team behind the metadata for URLs. But in general, this is, yeah, I understand also that we would only focus on NUTS and low at this stage.
The problem is that if you'll see the implementing act, they call the field ISO, but they say, be careful, Greece and United Kingdom has a different code. And then if you check NUTS 0, then exactly that's that. So, I mean, in any case, we should do the same. We cannot have different codes for this metadata and the SDG metadata.
So your proposition is to, yeah, exactly copy paste the usage note from the metadata for URLs, correct?
It's just the implementing add. The implementing add is using NUTS 0, but I don't know why they are calling it is ISO. So whatever we put, if you put ISO, you have to be careful, because any exception should be also included. I mean, we cannot use it GR and EL in these two code lists. Is what I mean. So that's the important thing. Yep. The secondary thing is name things for the proper name. So we are using NUTS 0, but that is not relevant. The relevant thing here is not the name. If we use the ISO 3166, but with exceptions, or we call it not zero. The real thing is that we need to use the exact code list used by the SDG metadata.
Correct. Yeah, and that's also our intent, just to be clear on that side. But I think it's important that you mention.
But what Paola said is really important, not only for this model, but also for the SDG metadata. I was not aware of that enormous delay, because I think that 1 year, 2 years is a big delay. So we have a problem anyway. I mean, because LAO is used by the SDG metadata, so we have a real problem.
Yeah, and I think there, let's also use 2 minutes to discuss this, because as mentioned by Maxime and also shared in the chat, NUTS is today supported by the Publications Office, and you can find a link where it's published and maintained directly by them, while LAO is currently only available in Excel format or CSV through Eurostat. And I think I see different actions that should be taken. One is making sure that LAO is also published as with your RISE, etc., attributed by the Publications Office. And the second would probably be to make sure that both can be maintained and updated within a short time frame. Miguel?
No, I just wanted to ask some of you, Ana Rosa, Paola, Jorge, if Kat, whoever knows it, if IMI, because IMI has a database of competent authorities already for quite some years. Do you know if this list of competent authorities is updated on a regular basis and is relying on one of these standards?
Sorry, Miguel, which one you are referring to?
IMI, if you remember, after the Services Directive...
IMI should be updated, but I need to double check it as well. Should be more updated, yes, but I need to double check.
However, Miguel, I think the IMI is mainly used by bigger administrations. I mean, regional and national administrations. They are not. Yes, it is not normally used by municipalities. So at least the little ones who used to change, because the capitals are not so frequently or change.
I understand. We will reach anyway. We will reach out to the colleagues of GROW to also understand how it fits in the whole picture of the gateway of the regulation, OOP, once only principle, and publication office. We will see what is the current situation, and we will raise the issue anyway to GROW and to publication office. We will come back to you on this topic.
Yeah, good. And also we'll see how to model from really from a semantic point of view, but also from a technical point of view, the distinction between NUTS in the current format it is available and LAO in the Excel format. And
I have another comment on location.
Yeah, go ahead.
Currently, in the SDG portal in Europe, when you look for a service, you need to specify the region or the country. So you can find, if you put, I don't know, a registered vehicle in Spain, you can find it. But if you are looking for a service at regional level, you can put, for instance, bar license in Canarias. However, if I put a bar license in Spain, you cannot find any service. Even if you have 17 different services in Spain, but in each region, because the word Spain is not specifically in it. So I'm concerned that on that. I mean, if I'm looking for asking a license bar in Spain, but I don't know that particular service is at regional level, I will have not any result, and I think it should not happen.
Yeah. So you mean there should be kind of a backward propagation of the search using the hierarchical codes, for
or
example,
at least the country.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps it's easier if you put the country as mandatory and optionally the regional code or the Lao code, but at least the country, and then you can always find services in that country, even if you don't know the geographical distribution of competences in that country.
Yeah. Right. I think it's a valid point, and probably something from an implementation point of view to be looked at when doing the pilot. And Kat, next to that, I see your comment in the chat. It may need some corrections as some authorities may be united. Can you explain a bit further what you mean?
Yes, you asked about the list of authorities. Is it correct? So that's just some of the authorities in Estonia, they have been united, so there maybe needs some corrections to do this to the list. But yeah, I can't tell you exactly at the moment. Yeah.
No worries, but I think it's a valid point. So I think nuts and low normally are complementary, and so could be combined into one unique list. And then, of course, once we propose this as part of the model, what will be needed is that each member state goes through the list and checks whether the list is correct and complete. And if not, to raise issues, and we can also check with the Duplications Office where is the best location to indicate such issues, so that it's corrected if needed.
Okay.
So, yeah. And maybe a last point is on the usage itself. Maybe that's something that we will need to leave for later discussions, but what should be the usage recommendation that we insert within for this code? Should it be that we indicate one code per service, and this code should be the lowest level relevant, or should we indicate several codes per public service? And if yes, how do we differentiate it? And do we need to differentiate it? I don't know if there are some reactions on this.
I propose it depends on the need of the research, not the research, the search engine, because the search engine must find the relevant service. So it must be amended according to that, I propose.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree indeed that if we indicate the lowest level, normally the search algorithm could use propagation, or we can hard code it as well. It could propagate towards all upper levels. And the other way around to a certain extent, but with, of course, less accuracy. Okay, but I got your 2 points. I propose to move forward for now. We'll propose something, and during the pilot phase, that's where exactly I think we'll be able to see how it works, and also to adapt in case the user note we prepared needs to be corrected.
Yeah. Okay. Run over to the next issue, which is issue 44 on the GitHub. So Here we are talking about the web page within the model, so the web page where the information of the public service is provided. And here the question is, should we capture the kind of page that is on the web page? We saw in one of the comments on GitHub that, for example, you can have different types, such as information, procedure, or even application. And Rosa, if you want to explain that a bit more in a minute. So the idea is here, could a type help in searching or finding the right information to define the type of a web page? Does anyone have some comments here?
Paola? Yeah, our comment, because Vincenzo, is shy, so maybe you don't see that he's from Italy, is Vintra, is that this point is quite interesting for us. So we would like to keep it because it helps the user experience. So we will be fine with that.
Okay.
The only thing is that currently you have two types, information and procedure. Because of Article 10, I guess, that the procedure, the web page of type procedure has to include the URL to the application. If we can register the URL application alone, I don't know if that is possible. So the problem here is for this requirement, for the information requirement on procedures of the SDGR, those procedures do not need to be to have an online format. So you can find procedures online or not online or offline.
Correct.
So I don't know if that information is relevant or it's not, but well, I mean, you will find it in the information. So I don't know if that is relevant. I mean, when I say application, is because you can find indeed, you can apply indeed online. But if you only have information, then you only can get the information and not the online application. But I don't know if that is relevant for the cross-border citizen.
And Rosa, I understand that, yeah, you would differentiate, or you say we could differentiate online application from other types of applications or offline applications.
Yes.
Besides the two other types identified in the slide.
No, it's an extra because even now each web page can be of the two types at once.
Yeah.
So in this case, if you put the application, then it is an extra type. It's not an alternative type.
Yes, in Estonia too, we have, I would say, two types of those web pages. One is where the information about the services provided, the description of the services, what for it is needed, and for example, and what should be done. And another web page may be where the service itself is, if there is a physical channels, the information about the bureaus, for example, or this e-services portals information, for example. So there is information service, as we call it in Estonia, and also the service itself. So there may be need for two kinds of web pages.
Yeah.
Because but that is our question from Estonia to Estonia. That is what we currently have in the link repository. I mean, you have links to general information pages
Yes.
And then you have links to a specific service pages when
Yes.
you can find the offices or the online links to apply the make the request, no?
Well, it may depend on the institution and the service, but in general, yes, we can differentiate about this information services and the services itself, the procedures, services as procedures. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, but I think, and also what you propose with application, the third one would be really it would be a kind of a subset of the procedure type we have currently. But so others, I see also, Paula, you say that this is of great interest to allow users, once the object of interest has been identified, to have all the endpoints associated.
Yeah, because they start on the portal in accessing the information about the procedure, and then they decide if they want to activate the procedure or not. So if we have this information, then they can start the procedure just after reading the information. If we don't have it, they need to start from the beginning in researching from the beginning the link of the services associated to the information they have already seen, and it creates a little bit of confusion.
Yeah.
So having the link to the services associated to the information creates a smoother user journey.
And so a question related to that, from your experience, are the users going to click directly from the search results to, yeah, this is the service I want to apply for, and so I have a direct link to really start my application, so I click on it? Or are they always going to the info, and should we redirect them first to an information page where they get more information before deciding whether or not that's really the right service they want to apply for? And Valentina?
Well, I don't believe they always pass through the information, but I can expect that most of the time they do it, because the portal helps the citizen who don't really know where to apply and how to apply in the member states, as a matter of general user, because they are user that are in member states and want to apply to something in another member states, and most of the time they don't know how to do it. So maybe they first move through the information, then they say, yes, this is what I was looking for, let's do it. Of course, it can be possible that they just search for the service, but I see an higher probability they go through the information first.
No. Valentina?
Yes, I agree with the second part of your statement, Florian, that's what I wanted to say earlier, that we should always have in mind that what we are doing is trying to, we want to identify the metadata for a specific purpose, right? To make the search results accurate, display them, make them really useful for the user to select which is the one that he was initially interested anyway. So, for example, when we were talking before, if we should add the application, if the service is online, if it's still in paper, blah, 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 blah. I think we should always focus. I mean, we can have a lot of tags and labels to add, but at the end, we will also have to select 3 or 4 or 5 to display, right? So I don't think we want to end up with a huge model with classes with a lot of attributes, nice to have, but at the end, just use the 3 of them to display under the links. So, for example, for me, your Europe scope, as we have say again and again in other meetings, is get the general information and redirect to the member state page to find what you are looking for afterwards. Yes, we don't want the user to have a lot of clicks back and forth, of course, but for example, if it's information page or procedure page, for me, that's it. Just these two attributes, which are already in the metadata links, as you said. The rest, if he needs to, if the procedure, the service is online or is offline or blah, 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 other options, he will find the information in the member state national portal or page or whatever. So yeah, I think I agree with the second part of your statement, Florian, that we should always encourage to redirect them and the user to spend 2-3 minutes, read about what the information, even if it's related to an online procedure, and then he will find the right link. I mean, there's also a responsibility in the member states' parts to build a user-friendly portal. You know what I mean? We cannot expect everything to be set right in the results. Yeah. It's also very important for us, once the user is redirected to our national page, to find his way. So yeah, that's...
Thanks, Valentini. Ana Rosa, and then I will summarize also a bit.
Yes, from my point of view, there is not so, the intention is not so put the link, the direct link to the form, but to inform the user if they can access online to the procedure. I see this more like a kind of icon beside the result, informing of that, if that procedure is accessible online or not. And then it could also motivate competent authorities to digitalize the procedures, even if they are not obliged by the SDGR. I mean, at the end, you will see a list of procedures, and you could see an icon telling you that this is online, this is offline, this is online, this is offline. At the end, the user will have a good idea of how digitalize is a topic in a country. So that is, it is not some. I was not thinking on putting the URL to access directly, which of course could be useful in the future when users, for instance, in my case, I barely use bookmarks because I go to Google, because I know that I find what I'm going to I need. I don't need to have bookmarks synchronized in all my devices and so on, because I can. The Google is my bookmark in that sense. So it could be in the future beautiful having your Europe as this big bookmark that I don't need to put on my own web browser. So, but that is the future. I mean, for now, I see more interesting in boosting this digitalization, but showing what are the procedures that are already online, available online. But I mean, that's if we are interested on boosting that feature of our procedures.
So thanks Ana Rosa. Let's summarize all the discussion we had in a couple of steps. First, I understand that everyone is interested to capture the type of URL. So really having the property. If not, please put a -1 in the chat, because then we need to start this. We need to tackle it as well. Then, as a second step, Valentini mentioned that we should also bear in mind that what we want to display as results should be short, and we should encourage the end user, the readers, to also get some important information that should be, let me say, controlled or managed by the member states directly. And so keeping the two types that we have currently within the metadata for URLs or the implementing act would be sufficient. So that's a second point. So please mention for this one as from now if you disagree with that. And then Ana Rosa finally also said that it would be great to capture whether or not the information is about for applying for procedure is available online or not. So if you can apply online, and for that, she mentioned that it's not going to be about providing directly the URL, but more about a logo. So maybe we need a last property or a second property to capture this information with a kind of online procedure, and it would be a yes or no or a Boolean data type. And based on that, we will know from on your Europe, we would be able to display, for example, a logo or any other way that we can discuss to display such information. Do you agree also with that, or do we need to discuss further this? So I take the signs in the chat as everyone is either reflecting intensely or agreeing. Okay, but then we will include in the model the type we discussed and also the last option described by Ana Rosa to capture whether or not the information is online. Yeah. Good, and we will propose some cardinalities for that, and to be checked also by you whether or not you agree with the cardinalities. So whether or not we make the information mandatory within the model. Good. With that, I propose to move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next issue we have is also on web page. It's a bit related. And should we allow several pages to be indicated per service or only one? So at this moment in time, we have allowed multiple pages. Go ahead, Florian.
No, sorry. I think I've been having a small delay. So good morning, Gabriele. Go ahead, Maxim.
So at this moment in time, we have made the possibility, as you also see in the cardinality, to indicate several web pages. So from a user perspective, this would give the ability to have a choice for the reader. And I think it's very related to the previous issue, and an example we found on GitHub from Ana Rosa, I think, is that you can find information, but also directly going through the entry forms.
And so from the previous discussion, we understand that good point, Georges, but I think the idea is also if you can indicate different types of web pages, whether it's about the procedure or about getting information, and from one country to another and from one organization to another, it can really differ, or at least that's my experience. So in many cases, you do have several pages, web pages on which the user can click.
Yeah, if you have the pages annotated, yeah. But while you were discussing the last issue, I was thinking in operational terms, it will be a complete madness to annotate every service in that respect. But yeah, it could be useful if the user knows exactly which link corresponds to the transactional service or the information about the service and so on. Yeah, then it would be useful. Otherwise, it will be just confusing. You have a search engine to direct the user to the service, but then you present 5 web links for it, and might not be that good. If it's not properly annotated, it could be very confusing for the user, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. And so,
but if I may, Jorge, you only have one link in the repository of links, which is the information of the procedure. In the repository of links, you won't have the link to the application, because that is not. I mean, the repository of link is not mean to that. So the search results always is pointing to the information page. And if you put the URL for the direct application, that's from my point of view is like when you look in Google, and then you have under the brief description, you have links, short 2 links or 3 links, but it's below the description. So you have the title with the link to the result, the description, and then under that description you have a few links. I mean 1, 2, 3 when they want to promote something that you can click directly and go to that. So is the way I think it should be displayed, not substituting the information link, the information to the link to the information of the procedure. That is the only one you will have in the repository of links for sure.
Yeah, but so Anna, you would include only a 1-to-1 cardinality, or you would still leave the option for 1-to-many, but
I mean, at the end, it's up. It should be better to have 1-to-n, but I don't know if that is the case, because that depends on the model of the information page. So there are people that perhaps they have several applications for the same procedure or not.
Yep.
So that depends on the competent authorities. I'm not sure which is the correct.
Okay. Gabriele said also in the chat that he agrees with 1-to-many. What about others?
Yes, I agree. The solution proposed, and I don't see particular problems about this issue.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And Valentini, you say you are more in favor of a 1-to-1.
But I think what's important also here is to take into account the language of a web page. Because if we're going for a 1-to-1, how do we model then multiple languages? Yeah, good. You raised your hand.
If I understand right the question, I think if there is 1-to-many, it can be used also as 1-to-1. So 1-to-many shouldn't be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Paola. It depends on the approach that we are confirming from what we put on the European portal and what we keep at national level. If we stick to the simple model in which we have a 1-to-1 relation at European level between the information and the procedure, and then we keep the 1-to-many relation from procedure to services at national level, maybe we should have a 1-to-1 relation. If some member states keeps the relation between the procedure and the specific services at national level at European portal level, then it should be one-to-many, because of course at national level will be one-to-many. But if we are telling that at European level we just keep the 21 procedure and then we manage the complexity at national level, then it should be one-to-one. It depends on the basic model we are implementing.
However, I still think that depends on the competent authority. So we should be as flexible as possible, because, for instance, I can have only one page on a procedure about claiming a pension, for instance. And that in that page, you can find information and explanation of which is the procedure of claiming a pension. But that is an example, okay? But perhaps the competent authority decides that it is easier for them to provide an online application for the claiming a pension in the general I don't know the name, the regular environment, regulatory environment, and another different for maritimes, for instance. In Spain, we have different pension systems if you are from the maritime scope. So you can have different procedures, e-procedures, because it's easier for the competent authority to provide specific forms depending on the pension system. So you have only one procedure, but because in general they are the same, but you can find 2, 3, or 4 different applications for the claiming pension depending on the pension system. That is, for instance, a case that you could find. So I think we should be as flexible as possible.
So maybe a proposition could be, we'll leave it one-to-many, but we also recommend in this case, the member states, to bear in mind the fact that, of course, those links should be used in the search results, ideally. And so if they start inserting many links, this will confuse more than help the end user. And also guidelines to
according to your statement of confusing the user, it depends how you present the information. I mean, of course, if you put everything in as the same level, then you for sure you will confuse the user. But if I said you only have one link, and because you found within that page annotations to different or applications, and you present those applications links as a subset of the link, of the main link. I mean, I am not confused when I see in Google that I have more than one link to click on a one only entry.
Yeah,
correct.
I think it's
correct.
But
the Google does that with an engine promoting one link above the other. So you have to annotate at least, like Ana Rosa said, at least you have to annotate the relationship between the pages, or else you won't know which one is the main and which one are the others, right? So, but in my opinion, you should have at least one link. If you put a cardinality of an asterisk, you can have none, and none, I think, is not acceptable, right? So it shouldn't be 0 or many, it should be 1 or many, at least 1. So
yeah, normally it's the current state. Huh? It's 1 too many, but 1 is the minimum. Yeah.
Not always. You perhaps you don't have a digitalized form for the application.
for the application, but for each public service, there should be at least one page with
Yes.
information available, correct?
Yes, and not only one, but at least two, English and your country official language.
Just listening to all of you, I have the feeling that we need to leave it open, one-to-one. Probably for some countries it's a best practice to keep it one-to-one, but not everybody can do it, because my understanding is that it's not always feasible to land in one single page, because maybe even for one particular service there are different competent authorities and different modalities. Is it correct, Ana Rosa, what you are telling us with the pension claim, that maybe is one different institute dealing with one type of maritime pension, another modality for another working environment? So
Yes,
it's dependent on the national implementation, let's say, of the service in a way.
Yes. Yes, it depends on the competent authorities. I cannot tell how competent authorities will model their information pages, because they are free of, if there are many similarities and they decide to provide only one information page, but to inform about different procedures that are almost the same one.
Can we say that in the worst case scenario, when there is a lot of complexity, granularity behind one service, so the relationship, the cardinality cannot be one-to-one, at least it's a win-win situation. The fact that the search results will appear with the same level of detail, let's say, this is the point of this exercise. Maybe you will get 10 links, but at a glance, you will be able to distinguish, yes, pension claim, I'm in this modality. At a glance, you will see a kind of very harmonized information coming out of these links. Do you think at least it could work this way?
Sorry, could you repeat it?
No, but my point is that I understand the logic of not overpopulating, overcluttering the search result, because maybe you will end up with, I don't know, 20 different links and a citizen could be puzzled. But my understanding is that for as long as we are harmonizing here the information that needs to be displayed link by link, in a way this risk is mitigated. The citizen will grasp immediately per link what is the information behind in order to click on the right link.
The problem is, which is the link we have? As I said, the main link is the link you have in the repository of links. So we are talking about links to information on procedures.
Yes.
So in that link gives the entry to online procedures. But how many? There is only one information page per one online procedure, or more than one online procedure. Is that what I'm saying? You have only one main link, which is the information on procedure, but from that page you can access in the example of pension claim, you have only one information on the procedure of claiming a pension, but then you can access to 3 online procedures, for instance. So that is the point. But you don't have 3 pages with information on each of these, because all the information you need is together, is gathered in only one information page, because the difference among them is not so big that then the competent authority decide to explain all the 3 modalities in the same page. But of course they prefer to create 3 different entry points, 3 different forms. That is a case I can imagine, but at the repository of links, you will have only one link. I don't know if we are talking about the same thing or not.
No, it's crystal clear. I mean, here we are, the level of granularity is much deeper, is at service or procedure level. Absolutely. But this cardinality one-to-one, my understanding, cannot be achieved at all times, because maybe even for one particular service, there might be several links behind, because the same service is provided by different competent authorities according to different modalities or different perspectives. No, Anna, is what you...
Yeah, but sorry. Yeah, but we should. What was our understanding is that this one-to-one complexity is something that we are going to manage at national level. Meaning, from the European level, what we receive is the information about which member state is called from the user for that procedure, and the specific procedure. I mean, one of 21 on the 21s. And then at national level, with our national catalog, we find which is the exact public authority, maybe the municipality, that needs to be involved in that procedure based on the user requirement. So in this case, we have one-to-one at national level, and then we have 1 to 8,000 at, sorry, one-to-one at European level, and 1 to 80,000. This is the real number, 1 to 80,000 at national level. But at European level, we just have the information about the specific procedure and the member state. This was our understanding for this simplified model, I mean.
If I may, perhaps is not my comment now is not helping, but the problem I see is that there are procedures and web pages that they are very related among them. So I miss, for instance, in procedures for license, for instance. You have a procedure to request a license, to cancel a license, to claim for a license. I mean, everything is regarding the same topic, but you have different procedures for the same topic. But you don't have an information page explaining all you can find for a bar license, because it is a general thing. I mean, the competent authorities, at least in Spain, don't use to explain everything about every topic, because there are thousands of topics. So I don't know if perhaps what we are missing here is that in the repository of links, when we talk about information on a procedure, perhaps the scope of that procedure, as Paula said, is not only one, but also it could be tightly related to other procedures.
Yeah, and maybe, Ana Rosa, maybe we can also tackle this part with a one-to-one, but still simply saying that what you described as part of a public service related to a procedure from Annex 2, you decide at which level of granularity you go in this description. And so you could have one web page at European level indicated per public service. But I also understand in general that we won't reach right now a consensus around this. So my proposition is, okay, we'll take your considerations and try to summarize this as part of the webinar report and share it with you. But in general, we will need to also to continue this discussion on GitHub. So please raise your points and your points of view on GitHub. And
Valentina raised her hand. I don't know if you want to intervene, but your position, I think, is clear. But Valentina, please go ahead. Okay, Valentina, you want to intervene? Or? Okay,
Yeah.
we'll carry on.
Yeah.
We cannot hear
We cannot
you.
hear you.
No, Valentini.
So I propose let's carry on, but if you're able to fix this, Valentini, we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry guys, I don't know. So I wanted to comment on something Miguel said. That's when I raised my hand, that when we were talking about one-to-one relationship, of course we didn't mean that one service is delivered to the by one authority. I think in every member state, one service engage more than one authorities. We have in mind that one service, one national landing page for the user.
Yes,
so if that arises an issue for the member state to structure a portal or a landing page to explain the to give the different links for the retirement, let's say, different options and cases, that's another thing. So yeah, just that. I mean, yeah, maybe we have discussed it already too much and we should
Yeah, it was discussed already, Valentina. I was suggesting the worst case scenario according to Ana Rosa's point of view, when there is not a landing page, because even, I mean, we are talking about the pension claim, and of course, it might be executed by different entities. But in case there is not a single landing page, because basically there are 4 or 5 major authorities in the country dealing with the pensions, depending on the sector of activity. So basically, at the end of the day, the cardinality will be not 1-to-1, because you will see 5 results.
But Valentini is right in one sense. I
Actually,
mean,
sorry, Miguel, you will see one link, and in the national link, you will see the 5 different national links to apply for the different cases of pension schemes. And guys, remember that the search, your Europe is mainly targeted to cross-border users, right? So do you really think that a foreigner will know so many details for the different kind of pension schemes and different cases of applications?
No, I would say it's the best practice.
I think he will just do a generic search. That's what I mean.
Thinking on cases where cannot be achieved like this. It's a best practice. Indeed, what we can propose is 1-to-1. I mean, we can leave it open, but suggesting that it's a best practice to have a single landing page. So this cardinality 1-to-1. But Ana Rosa, you wanted to say something else?
Yes, that what Valentina mentioned about retiring is a web page with information, the type information. So information of type information. But then you can go to a web page with information of type procedure, which is claiming a pension. And that is a particular procedure, but with 3 different forms. So you won't find an information page on claiming a pension on maritime scheme. You won't, because that information is not so different from claiming a pension on another different scheme. However, you don't have different. Even if you don't have different information pages, you will have 3 different forms for accessing that. So I'm not talking about information. I'm talking about the relationship between a link of type procedure, which contains information on procedure, and links to direct access an online procedure. So we have 3 different relationships between a link of type information and then the links of type procedure. Both of them are information, but they are different. Annex 1, if you like, and Annex 2, for instance, which is not exactly, but to make it clearly. And then from the web page with information of type procedure to the link to access the form. So, but of course, the third of that link, type of link, will not include it in the repository of link, because the repository of link only can contain the previous two types of web pages.
Yeah, so this is something that was agreed within the implementing act, if I remember well. So should we stick to that, but still limit to what Valentini mentioned and recommend this to all member states, or? But Paula, it's the implementing act from last year, huh? not the one for the OP.
Yeah, but we should include this in the OP because it influences how the procedure and the OP will work. Yeah, it's like Ana Rosa is telling me here. We are. It's a little bit more complex because we need to make those procedures working, and since one procedure from the Annex 2 list corresponds to several services in each member state, and those services are very different among member states in terms of number and type and so on, we should be sure that we don't put the whole list, the entire list of services on the European level. Otherwise, we are not able to match the 2023 deadline. That's the point. This is the way we are trying to address also the evidence broker and the semantic repository, because otherwise we need to have one single catalog for the entire list of services associated to the procedure. Just to give you an example, in Italy we have more than 500 services associated to the 51 procedure, with different flavors of these services in each competent authorities, which are 9,000. It's just a matter of being pragmatic by 2023. That's the only point.
Yes, but of course we shouldn't forget that we are not making with this model, we are not obliging you to publish information about all the public services, the 500 you mentioned, Paola, for example, for one procedure. That's more up to you and up to DG Grow to decide, okay, what's the level that we want to reach by 2023, right?
But the problem here is not that you are obliged or not obliged to publish the web links. The problem is what you understand by procedure, because in our case, our competent authorities understand procedure in a very in a lower level. So they are indeed publishing thousands of procedures because they understand procedure as the lowest level of the procedure. But even in that case, there are other some competent authorities that have some modalities of the procedure that they don't consider different procedures. So I think we cannot avoid anymore to discuss about the meaning of procedure, because it depends how we can agree on which is the correct model here. And of course, there is not. It is not a simple. It is not a simple problem. It is very difficult indeed. I think we cannot find a common understanding. So I think our only solution is to find out terms that help us to model the different realities.
Yes, and from that aspect, Yeah, I also understand that we need to move forward. Thanks, Valentini. One aspect is we stated in the last webinar also that we agree that a web page can be in different, or a web page the information captured by a web page should be available in different languages, which would then represent different URLs. That means that also from that aspect, a public service can have several web pages depending on the language available for the end user. So that's one aspect that we didn't discuss today, and one reason why we also proposed at the beginning to have a one-to-many relationship. On the procedure side, let's continue this discussion offline or after the webinar. And finally, on the discussion we had around, should we indicate one web page in general for the end user or not? We understand the point of Valentini, supported by, I think several of the people participating, and that's something we will need to continue. But at this stage, I understand that people are in favor of indicating ideally one source of information at European level per public service. Okay. With that, I propose to move forward, and we'll see what we can tackle in the remaining time.
Yeah. So the next issue is also related to web page, and as raised in the beginning of the webinar, the relation with contact point, for example. Is there a need to have next to web page also other channels, such as an online inquiry form, for example? For example, in CPS-VAP, we have the class channel, which captures different media to interact with the people.
But so, simply to the point here is, so far we haven't included channel because we don't think it's needed within this model, since we are really looking at the search facility, and we simply needs to indicate the right web page. Is there anyone who disagree with that?
Sorry, disagree with not included, or including, or disagree in including?
So our proposition is not to include it.
Yeah, we would like to include it. Meaning, right now we have just one channel, that is the web channel. Mm-hmm. But at national level, the services can be available in different channels. So we go back to the previous discussion. What are we going to put on the website? Just the general level, then yes, it's not needed. This is something we can keep at the national level. If we keep the European level open to all the details for other member states, then yes, you should put it there, but not mandatory.
Yeah, okay. Good, you want to add something?
I propose in some cases the user may have to have this possibility to choose which channel to use. In this case, if there is a need for the user to choose which channel is more relevant or more appropriate for him or her, that this information about the channel may be important in this case.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's relevant for all the services, but in some cases, yes.
So maybe let me rephrase the question differently. Are there cases where it's really needed for the user to have this information within the search results at European level? So to have, for example, the fact that information is accessible via email or via a phone number.
Well, if we go back to the previous discussion, and we agree on what also Valentini and Ana Rosa said, meaning we keep only the general procedure on the European level, then no, we shouldn't put the channel over there, because it can be different for the different services at national level. So you don't have a single channel for all the services. If you decide, and we don't suggest it, to put at European level to keep the one-to-one relationship between procedure and associated use case, then for each use case you will need to include the channel. But again, we are favorable for keeping only the general procedure level at European level.
Yeah. From the previous discussion, my perception was that we go for a synthesized and short set of information at European level to redirect as much as possible the users to the pages or where they can find further information, including other types of channels. That's what I understood also from previous discussions. Do you agree with that?
Well, we don't agree with the one-to-one relationship between procedure and services managed at European level. But it's up to you. That was an open point, no?
Yeah.
So if the relation is one-to-one, then we don't need the channel, of course. If the relation is one-to-n, then yes, it's one-to-n per m, because each n has a different channel. So you see, the complexity at European level increases a lot.
It's the same question, right? If you want the complexity at the European level or not. If you want to push it to the national websites, then you have the problem solved, because you don't need all this complexity. You just have a landing page for each service in each country that contains all the complexity required for that country, and you don't have to accommodate the different needs at the European level. Might be more sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and be wiser. Yeah.
It would be wiser, George, you mentioned.
Yeah, it would be wiser to not to bring the whole complexity to the European level, right? So because you will have a huge fight accommodating all the different aspects of all the different countries and all the different needs, right?
I think so too. Yeah.
Well, yeah. May I ask Paola a question? What do you mean if there is a one-to-one, there is no channel? So do you mean that you don't refer any channel at all?
No.
I propose there should be at least one channel then.
Yeah, because you can have different channels for each service, and because we have one procedure, and this procedure corresponds to several use cases. Each use case has different channels associated to it. For example, use case 1 is completely online via web. The use case 2 can also be accessible by mobile. The use case 3 can be also made through emails. Now I'm telling something general. So if you keep the one-to-one relationship, you don't have all the detail to define the different channels associated to the use case. If you keep the complexity to European level, and we also don't suggest it, then you have to also associate to the use case all the different channels that the user can use for that use case. But you see, it explodes.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But in the case of one-to-one, you still have at least one channel then.
Yeah, one-to-one, then you don't have the channel at European level. When the user arrives at national level, it has all the channel associated to the different use cases.
Okay.
Let me maybe rephrase. So the concept of channel is simply saying that it's not needed. But of course, a web page is a a type of channel. So by simply having web page, we have one specific type of channel always modeled here. And what we discussed is the fact that for simplicity, and that's also related to the point of Valentini in the chat, at European level, for the use case we are discussing today, so the search results, that's the only thing probably we need, correct? And so the further complexity of capturing other types of channels should be left at the national and regional and local levels. And I think that's also what was said in the discussion. So can we agree on that? Okay. In any case, if there should be further discussions, feel free to use also the GitHub channel. Yeah, sorry. And in the meanwhile, I propose to move forward. We can skip this one, right?
Okay, so the next issues are on contact point. Here we have combined two of GitHub. So it's also related to channel and web page a bit. We propose to have a direct class of contact point within the model, but then the question, so for example, it concerns telephone, email, but then the question is, how should we define contact point? For example, in CPOV, there is a contact point defined regarding availability restriction, email, phone, and opening hours. So are there specific attributes that you would like to see within contact point? What do you not want to see? So in our proposition, we propose to align with CPOV, and in the next slide, you will see an example of how it looks like. So feel free to comment on this, whether you agree or disagree. Yeah.
But maybe, Maxim, from the discussion we just had, I think maybe the question should be, do we want in the end to have the contact point modeled? And maybe the answer, from what I get right before, the answer is no. There is no need to indicate the specific details on how to contact the service provider, the public organization, at European level. And I think, Paola, that's also what you mentioned in the chat. So if you can quickly, in the chat, sorry, Paola, I'll give you the word in a second. If you can quickly, the others also indicate in the chat whether you agree to remove contact details, contact points, sorry. Yeah. And Paola, I don't know if you want to add something, feel free.
No, I agree with you, meaning the answer will be no, because we don't want to keep the specific use cases at European level, because otherwise we have 9,000 contacts per 500 services and so on.
Yeah, and so we simplify the model as well, which I think for the search won't be a problem, to the quite contrary. Good. I propose to move to the next then.
Yeah. So the next issue is on the type of a public service. So in CPSVAP, we have a type of public service, and you will see the list on the bottom left of the slide. And there our question is it useful in our model to have a type such as we have proposed in CPSVAP? Are there any alternatives? What do you think on this issue? And otherwise, if you think there is no need, we can just leave out the type for public service. And here we should then think, can this improve our search or the results within the exercise?
Any reactions on this, or?
Yeah, from our perspective, it can be useful if we are able to find a way to identify the 21 procedure of the SDG.
Through those types of services. Yeah.
Types, yeah. Because in this case, the user can do what you suggested, that is accessing directly the procedure, not passing through the information.
Yeah.
At least for the 21.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. What do the others think? Do they agree with what Paola just said? So if we capture the information from the 21 procedures within this code, not exactly the same, but if there is a mapping that could allow it, would that be useful?
But how would you map the business activities, because it might be different to state?
Correct. Meaning that if we move into this direction, there could be some work in collecting your inputs or from an initial proposition, and this is not something that we can do in the next 2 weeks. Meaning that it will take maybe throughout the summer we can work towards an initial version.
But can evidence broker help us in some way, because we are mapping there something?
It's a valid point, and maybe we can also say that we wait for the evidence broker, to be live or to further search on this aspect, and then we can reuse the output. That's also an option. Yeah, good.
I have a question about this event-based approach. So if we're talking about this event-based services, should the event also be named somewhere in here?
It's a valid point. We discussed the event. I think it's the next,
indeed.
the next slide. So maybe let's just quickly mention that at the moment there are different options to classify public services. And right now we were thinking about the type, what we display on this slide, the events, life and business events. And then we had a discussion point about the information areas from Annex 1 and how to capture those. And finally, we had also a discussion point about the types of output. But those are the points we are still thinking of discussing, but I see also with the time left, let's see what we can handle.
Okay.
So, okay, maybe Anna, you mentioned I like the proposed solution, but I don't know if the types comply with the needs. Yeah, I think we need to capture first a bit better the needs before moving forward in this solution. So what we will do is maybe post on GitHub what we think could be the need, and then ask all of you to react on this. I think that would be the easiest. And by unblocked list, Gabriele, what do you mean exactly? A list that a member state can can further elaborate?
I think that it is possible to have a national extension to the European list.
Yeah.
And you can manage the type with other
national level, meaning that
yes.
Of course it's easier if you have a core list at European level to which all member states can map and complement where needed. But at least there is a core agreed. That's of course the advantage of having something at European level.
It's correct.
Yeah. Okay, let's discuss further this one offline then, and on the next one. Yeah, go ahead, Maxime.
Okay. So in the next one, this is also a very interesting one. We have on the one side the policy code within the SDGR. So the different information areas, the different live and business events mentioned in Annex 1 and 2. And the question here is there a need to capture all of this information and these different information areas? What we see in CPS-VAP is that we have also had live events and business events. So we see here for sure a connection, and here we propose to map these different live events from, for example, Annex 2 to the list of business and live events of CPS-VAP. We will dive into it in the next slides. So here,
maybe show it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here you will see the live events of CPS-VAP and the ones of Annex 2, where we have done already an initial mapping. In the next slide, you will see the business events of Annex 2 and then also the business events of CPS-VAP. And then here in this next slide, you will see that we have the different, now we are talking about the information areas of Annex 1. And here we again see some links with the business events of CPS-VAP and also with some types of a public service defined in CPS-VAP.
Mm-hmm. Let's tackle first the, let's put the information areas aside for a second and focus only on the live events from Annex 2. And I see also that, Paula, you raised hand, but not anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, in a few minutes I need to leave, But here we have general points to highlight to you. And of course, Gabriele is our very expert on the CPS-VAP. And a few months ago, we double-checked about what you're showing, that is the mapping between the CPS-VAP live events and the SDG live events that are in the regulation, and we have the same issue. We don't have a one-to-one mapping of those live events, so maybe it creates a little bit of confusion. We are not sure that we should keep this information on the catalog, but I leave it to you because it's something that maybe the European Commission internally needs to clarify.
I think what is important is because, for example, you see here that we have 3 types moving, which is a type of live events indicated in the Annex 2, and it simply means that the terms within the code list of live events of in CPS-VAP are going further into the details compared to the ones of the SDGR. So, and I think this can be seen very in detail with the business event, where in the SDGR you have only one, which is covering all the different types of procedures related to businesses. So I think the important question here is, do we need further classification of live events with further details compared to what the SDGR is proposing? Really thinking about the end user, would that help to display and to improve the search results of an end user, or not? We don't need it.
If we keep the 21 procedure level at European level, maybe we don't need it because we have, just 21 option for the user. Then that can be well classified in the SDG live events instead of making an additional level of research for a total of 21 procedures. Yep. If we open the complexity at European level and we put all the services, then yes, of course, because it becomes a mess. But we do not recommend it.
Yeah, and so let me phrase it differently. I think your point is very valid, Paula. Do we always stick to the 21 procedures exactly at European level, or do we also give the opportunity to describe other public services and, of course, map them to the 21 procedures, but so that, because my impression is also that with the 21 procedures, it will be difficult for a search engine to deliver accurate results based on the search of end users. Or you simply don't need a search engine for 21 procedures.
Yeah. Again, we recommend to keep the 21 procedure at European level, also because we need to make it available by 2023. Because also the search engine has a big complexity if we put at the European level all the single services of all the member states, because then you need to map which service correspond to the other one in order to allow this search engine to show the same services to the user. And this is something that we are not doing in the single digital gateway activity, because we are in some way trying to map how to exchange the evidence, but we are not mapping one member state use cases with the other one. So I would not recommend it, but it's up to you.
Yeah, okay. So looking at the time, let's continue this discussion offline and maybe during the next webinar. But in general, I think it's an important point to be answered. And let's move quickly to the last slide, maybe on the next steps.
Yeah,
we were almost at the end of the different issues, so I think we covered most of it.
Yeah, we have some additional considerations, but we can also tackle it in the next webinar, actually.
Yeah. Indeed.
Okay, so
simply displaying the next steps. What is important is, of course, for you to continue follow the GitHub repository, where Maxime sent you an email on how to also subscribe to the activities of GitHub. I think that's relevant and useful. We will update, based on our discussion today, the model proposed normally by next 17th is next Friday, I think. No, this Monday, sorry. So we'll do our best to have a new version by next Monday. And then, yeah, stay tuned for the 1st of June. Book the date, and normally the slot in the morning, to organize a discussion on those points, and also start discussing, brainstorming about the scope of the pilot activities. Thanks a lot. Sorry for the 2 minutes delay, and thanks a lot for all the contributions. Please continue. Yeah, Miguel, I don't know if you want to say more.
No, thank you all. We are just running out of time, so see you soon.
Thank you very much. Talk to you all very soon.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.